Hi there. Do you ever wonder why we sabotage our self care and make it feel like we're climbing Mount Everest? Well, I do. And I think I found three ways to make it a little bit easier. Let me explain. So let's take a look at this in terms of a model. Um, we're going to start with a triangle. And the triangle is self care. So the idea here is trying to understand why we sabotage our self-care. And what I've discovered is that there's three reasons why. One is evolution. One is societal or cultural expectations. And another is our role modeling that we received as kids. What ends up happening is these end up being what I would call sort of red zone um, situations that make us feel like we just can't make it through self-care. And in another video, I will be explaining exactly why that is. But for a quick summary right now, I wanted to show you this diagram or this model. So in terms of evolution, the way it manifests is the infamous guilt, right? Anybody heard of mom guilt? Yeah, that's what it is. So there's guilt, and the guilt is related to if I take care of myself, what if I miss something with my kids, and then they end up not being safe, not being well. And that's an evolutionary thing that comes from the caveman days that has continued on until right now. But the reality is that guilt is actually not going to save our children. We need to instead start self-caring. But I'll get into that in a minute. The other one that I mentioned is expectations. And expectations from our society are basically turned into shame, right? And we don't really want to be feeling shame in life, because when we're in that shame state, when we're not matching expectations and we feel that shame state, it really brings our energy vibrations down, and we're not able to be an effective parent at all. So what we want to be doing is moving ourselves out of that shame state, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But the third thing that brings us down and sabotages our ability to self-care, making it challenging, is a role modeling we receive from past generations. And what that does is it kind of wires into our subconscious mind, right? And so we have all of this subconscious thinking and talk that's going on that's making us shift away from our self-care and back into old patterns. So between evolution, which manifests as guilt, expectations from culture and society over the years, manifesting as shame, and the role modeling we receive that wired into our subconscious mind, maybe you can see why it would be so difficult to just start practicing self-care, even though we know that research backs it up, and even though we know it's important. These are the reasons why it pulls us away, it sabotages us. But the good news is there are some ways to combat that. And what I've discovered is if you start practicing being a trailblazer, we start to negate the guilt. If we start to use self-compassion, we start to negate the shame. And if we start using small steps or taking small steps, we start to rewire our subconscious role modeling. So I'm going to break that down for you even further, right? So I'm going to show you how shifting into a trailblazer, using self-compassion and taking small steps really makes practicing self-care a little bit easier alongside of the challenges that pull us down, which were the evolution, expectations, and role modeling. So let me just break this down into action steps for you so that this can be usable. So when it comes to being a trailblazer, what I want you to do is I want you to really own it, right? We are a whole new generation of moms who are making changes for our generation. We're really the first generation to truly make these changes. So own it and recognize just how courageous you are being. And the beautiful part about recognizing our courage is that it rises our vibrations up from that sensation of guilt. So guilt is a low vibration. It sort of shuts us down. But when we start to feel courage, it rises us, which allows us to move forward more effectively with everything we want to do, but particularly with self-care. When it comes to self-compassion, recognize that, wow, there have been a lot of social expectations over so many years that have been pulling us back into this old school kind of thinking where being a mom means self-sacrifice. It's not true. Being a mom means self-caring so that we can be there for our children. We know this now. So to get through the social expectations that have been there, we want to start using empathy, right? Saying, wow, you know what? This is really hard. We are again trailblazers. And so this is a difficult challenge that we're in right now, and we need to do it. So with empathy, we recognize how hard this is, and then we continue to encourage and recognize, the word courage is in encourage. So we're still staying on that higher vibration as we move towards self-care in this generation. And then finally, what we want to be doing is actually taking small steps. These small steps are going to be awareness, everyday awareness, whoops, and also daily, right? Daily steps. As we become more aware of ourselves and just take these daily small steps, we really start to shift the subconscious wiring and rewire our brain so that self care becomes what's familiar. And that's a really, really critical piece here. So the method is, to practice self care in this generation, especially, we have to become trailblazers, own it, feel courageous, recognize that. Use self compassion, saying, wow, yeah, being a trailblazer is really hard, and I can do this because I want to change the generations. And finally, take small steps so that I can change my subconscious wiring by taking daily steps with greater awareness. So I really hope that you can embrace this model and enjoy the video. And I would love to hear your comments in the comments below. Okay, thanks. Take care. Bye.